This is better than brisket. This is better than brisket, and I would say it's truly not even close. Today we're going to start off with around a 5.5 pound rack of beef plate ribs. This is also known as a dino rib. Sometimes people will actually cut this in half to make the beef ribs just a little bit bigger, but we wanted to cook the whole thing today. So for this trim today, we're going to keep it extremely simple. All I see is just a little bit hanging off here. I'm going to grab some shears and just kind of cut that away. And that right there is all we're going to take off of these beef ribs. I don't need to round anything. It looks good to me, and I'm also not going to take off any of the fat on top. That's going to be completely fine. We're going to go ahead and start seasoning these up. They have been out on the counter for around 45 minutes, so they're coming up to room temperature, but obviously they're still cold. So I'm going to go over top with Killer Hogs TX. This has salt, pepper, garlic. It has stick granules of pepper, which I think is amazing on beef, and it's one of our favorite rubs. You want to make sure to get all the sides as best you can. And then we'll go over top with a light layer of our trifecta. This is just going to have a little bit more of a savory note to it. It still has some black pepper there. It's also going to give just a little bit of color. These are some amazing looking beef ribs. You guys could see the marbling in the camera. We got these from Tubble's Meat Market. Same thing with trifecta. You want to make sure to get all sides. And this right here looks perfect for our beef ribs. If you guys don't have TX or trifecta, I definitely recommend something with some pepper, with some larger granules, because we're trying to build bark on these beef ribs. Today we're outside at the Weber Searwood XL, and the preparation for this is super simple. We've set it to 300 degrees, and we're using hickory pellets today. We're going to put this on the top rack. Let me show you exactly how we're going to do that. So for our Searwood XL, you guys can see that we don't have a traditional deflector plate that most pellet grills have. So typically they'll have one that covers the whole bottom of this, and then the grease feeds off into a grease trap. Here with the Weber Searwood XL, we actually have openings where the heat can come overside of these flavorizer bars. So what I like to do is actually put some water into a pan here. You can see that I'm kind of making a little bit of a mess, but it's no big deal. We're going to put water into a pan, and that does two things for me. So I personally like using water pans in almost every cooker that I have, because I believe that it adds moisture to the cooking chamber. That's going to make for a little bit of a steamed environment where the bark is not going to get too hard too quick. And also this is going to protect my beef ribs from getting too charred on the bottom. This is a little bit different of a pellet grill than most others because of that heat that can come up and hit that meat pretty much directly. That water pan is going to protect it today, and we're going to make sure that we get a nice beef rib. So now it's extremely important that you put the beef ribs directly over that water pan. Like I said just a second ago, this is going to stop heat from hitting directly onto this beef rib, but heat does rise. So it's still going to be plenty hot up here, and we're going to get great bark and great flavor on these beef ribs. Now at this point in the cook, we're just going to let these beef ribs rock and roll. The pellet grill is just going to hold temps all day. We're going to check it periodically, see if we need to spritz, and of course, we're just looking for a perfect cook. It's been exactly 1 hour on our beef ribs, and we just wanted to come out here and take a quick look. You can actually already see that we are getting some nice color on top of these beef ribs. If you come in real close, there's a few dry spots. It's not too bad. So if anything, we're just going to spritz with a little bit of water today. I'm just looking to add a little bit of moisture, but I also do not want to knock any of this bark off that we're creating. And that should be completely fine. So we're going to keep this process going for at least the next 3 to 4 hours until we build a nice bark here and it's time to wrap. We won't bring you back every single time that we spritz, but we will bring you back when it's time to wrap. Right at 3 hours on our beef ribs, these are looking exactly the way I want them to. You can see there's some nice pullback on these bones. You can see everything is really nice and soft, and of course no rub is coming off on my finger. Now what I'm looking to do with these beef ribs is take them off and put them into a half pan. This half pan has a stick of butter in it, and I'm just going to let that stick of butter melt inside this wrap for just a few minutes. I'm also going to go ahead and add some beef broth here. What this is going to do is it's going to create a really nice and flavorful au jus that's going to come from this beef broth, from this butter, and then all the renderings that are going to come out of my beef ribs. And I've had plenty of people before ask me why I like to put the bones down in this liquid. A lot of people would actually put the meat in that liquid. Well, two things. Number one, I worked pretty hard on this bark and I don't want to mess it up with that liquid. And I'm also looking to add flavor from these bones. So this liquid is going to come up a little bit. It's going to pull some flavor out of these bones. And I just think that it makes for a really good au jus to put back over the beef ribs in the end. From the beef broth and the butter and of course the flavor that's going to come out of these bones, I think it makes for a really nice and natural tasting au jus. If you want to add this to a barbecue sauce later, you can absolutely do that. But this is just going to add that great flavor. I'm just going to add a probe right to the middle of my beef ribs so we can monitor temperatures and make sure we don't overcook this. Last thing I'm going to do is cover this pan with some foil. Now another thing to note, if your water pan at this point starts looking like it's lost a lot of water, I definitely recommend adding more. If you do not add more, what it's going to start doing is evaporating all that beef broth in our wrap, and that's something that you do not want to lose. As it starts evaporating, it's actually going to start getting concentrated as well, and it can get really, really salty really quickly. So we want to make sure that there's still moisture in the chamber. Add water now if you need to. At this point, not sure if you can tell, but my water has gone down about halfway, so I'm just going to fill it right back up. Internal temp is reading at 205 degrees on our beef ribs right now. Let's take a look. We always want to double check just to make sure that these are completely done. Temperature is a great guideline, but it has to feel right. Watch out for the steam, and we just want to double check. Yeah, the beef rib is feeling really soft. It's feeling really good. You can see I'm reading 208 here. I've got 205 on my Weber, so these are going to be perfect. So the cooking portion outside is done, but the rest is just as important. So if you guys were going to eat these within the next 2 hours, I would say you could just leave them on the counter and they're still going to be nice and hot. But if you guys want to eat them 3, 4, 6 hours later, you might want to put these into one of your coolers, into a Cambro, or you could put it on a heated rest in your oven. So since these just came off of the cooker, I'm going to go ahead and vent one of the corners. You can see some of the steam is still coming out. I want these to stop cooking. And then after 15 minutes, I'll put them in my oven on keep warm. Ours gets down to 165 degrees. I actually would recommend going lower, but we're going to eat these in around 4 hours, so that's going to be perfect. We rested these beef ribs for 4 hours. It's time to eat dinner, so I wanted to take them out and show you exactly how we're going to finish them up. I've got my foil pan here, and I'm just going to pour all of the au jus out of it into a grease separator. Now don't forget, at the moment, this is beef broth and butter, and of course we use those bones to pull some of the flavor out, and all we're trying to do is separate the fat from the good au jus. Now I'm going to take half a cup of Killer Hogs the barbecue sauce to 1/4 cup of our delicious au jus. We're going to go ahead and mix this up. Recently, we've been liking a light layer of barbecue sauce on our beef because we think if you find the right sauce, it does enhance that beef flavor, because a lot of the times when we're smoking briskets or beef ribs, they are very savory and it's hard to eat a lot of it, but this kind of helps balance everything out. Now, if you take a quick look at these beef ribs, you can see just how soft it is. I guarantee you I could break through this with my finger. That long rest, it lets the meat relax, stop cooking, and of course, just redistribute those juices all throughout this beef. So we're gonna go right over top. I don't have a basting brush today. It's all good, figure it out. I'm gonna paint the bones just to make sure everything looks beautiful. And we'll just go right on top again. All we're gonna do now is let this sauce set, and then it's time to eat. Barbecue is a labor of love. This took us long enough. Now it's time to take a slice and see how we did. I'll follow right between the bones. I can tell you that this has absolutely zero resistance to it. Now it's time to take a bite. Dude, anybody that says barbecue sauce doesn't belong on beef ribs absolutely needs to try this. This is a 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. This is better than brisket. This is better than brisket, and I would say it's truly not even close. These are the recipes, these are the days that I am so happy that I get to share barbecue with you guys. I hope you guys try this one. If you don't have a pellet grill, that's fine. do it on any smoker. We actually specifically made this for one of our subscribers that's been asking for it for a very long time. So I hope you enjoyed this video specifically, and I hope all of you guys did as well. As always, we really appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one. Oh my God.